While Dante and Beatrice gaze up at God, Beatrice answers a number of theological and metaphysical questions. One of her pronouncements provides the subject of this illumination. You could count to 20 in less time than it took for a third of the angels to rebel and fall they did, as deep as can be, to the very center of the physical world, from the infinite immaterial heaven to the heavy density of hell. Beatrice ends the canto inveighing against the contemporary clergy, and Di Paolo has illustrated a particularly vivid passage drawn from everyday life. But now they go to preach armed with jokes and cute stories. If they get a laugh, they ask no more. So proud they are of standing in the pulpit with everyone looking at them. Satan's made his nest in their wide woolen sleeves, laid his eggs in the hoods that hang down their backs. If people knew what birds make their home in those robes, they wouldn't be so trustful of the indulgences these good brothers sell. Credulity is fostered by the Church like a new theological virtue, indeed, the very latest style in faith. Believers long at once for anything they're promised, without a thought of what might be its guarantee. The faithful fill the collection plate from which the monastic livestock feed, not just the porcine priests, they're whores and bastards too, while simple parishioners are dieted on lies. Di Paolo shows us the priest, obviously very full of himself, the congregation, who are used to being entertained and have consequently lost the habit of reverence or even attention, while the swineherd walking in the hog shows how venal personal concerns have been brought into the church without anyone finding it incongruous. Now in Canto 30 we have left the primum mobile and entered the Empyrean. Dante sees more than angelic hierarchies. His vision of God keeps transforming to match his higher spiritual level. Now he sees the assembly of the saved, first in the likeness of flowers on river banks, being given the joys of heaven by angels in the likeness of bees. My vision was rekindled, powerful now to encounter any ray unfazed. My eyes were even equal to the sight of the river of light I now saw pouring down in a fiery stream, yellow and red between two banks which a supernatural springtime had emblazoned with blooms. The radiant waves shot out live sparks that flew among the flowers and settled in them so they looked like sun-struck rubies set in bezels of gold. Then they flew from the flowers like inebriated bees, plunged back into the mystic river, and new sparks emerged in turn from its whirl. The exuberance of these angels calls to mind the fairies of William Blake's visions, like the mischievous small sir who sits on a streaked tulip in the opening lines of Blake's Europe, who says, "I will write a book on leaves of flowers, if you will feed me on love thoughts, and give me now and then a cup of sparkling poetic fancies, and when I am tipsy I will sing you to this soft lute, and show you all alive this world where every particle of dust breathes forth its joy." It does seem as though Dante and Blake, and for that matter Bosch, had visited the same place and brought back accounts of what they saw that agreed in the detail, but differed in the interpretation. Still in Canto 30, the vision has changed from a river between its banks to a city within its walls, which in turn becomes a sort of stadium in which all the saved are enthroned in order of rank. The eagle of the Holy Roman Empire marks the seat reserved for the soul of Henry VII, the last political savior Dante believed in, who was not yet dead at the time of the poet's otherworld journey. In Canto 31, the Assembly of the Saved changes its appearance once again. The army of saints, which Christ made his own at the price of his life, appeared to me in the form of a vast glowing rose, and the airborne portion of heaven's defenders, the angels, sang the praise of him whose goodness is the cause of all love, and whose love has made so great the number of the good. The angels seemed like a squadron of bees descending to their delicious business in the flower beds, then buzzing back with nectar to confect within the hive. Downward they went among the splendid petals, then back up to the sun-like source. Di Paolo shows us God and the angels nestled in the petals of the celestial rose, a condensation which omits the saved, but was probably as much as could have been managed in a representational picture 7 inches wide by 3.5 inches high. This canto ends with St. Bernard, shown at right in a white habit, pointing out the Virgin. The garden here is not a change of scene. We are still in the celestial rose. It is rather a symbolic representation of the Virgin herself, who is conventionally described in medieval poetry in terms of the garden in the Song of Solomon. In the second to last canto now, we have a closer view of Mary among heaven's elite. Eve is at Mary's feet. Just under Eve we have St. Anne, Mary's mother, who is, like Mary, heavily robed, and then at left St. Lucy, Dante's patron saint. In the outer circle, proceeding clockwise from Mary, is the Apostle John, St. Francis, John the Baptist, St. Augustine, St. Bernard, a female saint we cannot identify from Dante's text, and St. Peter with his key. In another illustration to the same canto, we see the Virgin with Gabriel, the angel of the Annunciation, St. Anne gazing raptly at her very accomplished daughter, Moses, looking a little less than happy at finding his book demoted to the status of Old Testament, and St. Bernard. Dante's text in these last cantos is very theological and historical, and the expedient of giving group portraits of the most famous characters mentioned was a sound, if not terribly imaginative, choice. The last canto of the Commedia opens with Bernard's prayer to the Virgin, which begins, "Virgin Mary, Mother of your Maker, Daughter of your Son, fairest paradox, paragon of humility, exalted by the Creator above all other creatures, pivot of providence, turning point of human destiny." This beautiful and heartfelt prayer sweeps the reader into Dante's devotion, and Di Paolo has echoed the solemn formality of the invocation by showing Mary and her Son on an altar. The final vision of the comedy reveals the presence of the deity in our world and how God and man could become one. Dante leads into his ultimate revelation with many a disclaimer, pleading the impossibility of translating into human language what he saw. To describe that single instant is more exhausting than to retell the entire voyage of the Argo, from the instant that first of all ships touched brine, till then too sacred for man's passage. It's wearier than it would be to start that ancient story anew from its pre-beginning, from the moment of Neptune's amazement at learning ship timber had paved his waves. To recreate my moment is more laborious than to reach back 30 centuries to the days of Jason and retrace the maze of his search for the fleece at the center of the world. Dante does, in fact, share with us his final vision, with verses of such agility and concision that even as we read and reread the magical lines, we cannot fathom how it is he in fact does what he succeeds in doing. But if DiPaolo understood the cryptic, mystical, and indeed mathematical formulation of Dante's final lines, he did not undertake to represent their meaning here, but stopped at the threshold of enlightenment.